Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Football.
It is a Black Monday in the National Football League. We're just, Judd and I both have Gopher stuff on today. Look at this.
No one's a bigger fan. You know why? Because Gopher men's basketball's back, Declan. I don't know if you've noticed or not yet.
They're back.
But Gopher men's basketball, nobody is a bigger fan of Gopher hoops than Phil and I.
No, I'll have to go to a game sometime.
Yeah, tell me when.
When's their next home game?
Clear your schedule. It's soon. It's soon because we're
pretty soon.
We're right in the season.
I'm guessing I don't know the exact. I'll have to check on the exact time.
Michigan, no problem. Maryland, see you later. Okay.
Yeah, bring on another M school. Bring on Michigan State. Bring on whoever else.
Yeah, exactly right.
So welcome in Purple Daily Vikings Entertainment, presented by our friends at Quick Trip. And today we deliver our hottest Vikings takes live here on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. We will keep you updated on some of the Black Monday happenings, including former general manager Rick Spielman. He's going to assist along with Bob Myers, by the way, the former GM and architect of the Warriors dynasty in the NBA. Bob Myers and Rick Spielman have been hired as essentially consultants by the new Washington Commanders ownership group to identify the new general manager and coach for the organization. Now, I could see Rick in some of those meetings being like, I don't really like these candidates very much. Bob, what if I handed you my resume?
That's what I'm thinking. Like, do you really think like Rick's going to be, unless he's just done with being a GM, which I don't really see. Like, I think he still loves it. So, yeah, that's what I was thinking. The Bob Myers one, though, is super intriguing.
Yeah. So Bob is doing some TV work for ESPN. I guess he's still going to do like NBA coverage on ESPN, but he's going to help build, at least as a consultant, an NFL franchise. So, okay, before we get to our hottest Vikings takes, and we haven't really dove into the big Brett Kollman speculation about what the Vikings tried to do in last year's draft. So we'll get to that on today's show. We'll give you a bonus episode of Purple Daily today with a pie chart in it. Let's tell the audience about our friends at Quick Trip who've helped us power Purple Daily through the 2023-24 season.
Absolutely. And so it's Monday. And you know what? After work, it's going to be a long day. You got to get gasoline. And the wife or the husband said, you know what, honey, pick up dinner. And you're thinking, I got to make all these separate stops. I got to go to the gas station. I got to, As Declan and Phil can tell you, Quick Trip is your one-stop shopping. And Sports Dad is here to tell you exactly what you can get, including a full offering of chicken options, a roasted whole chicken. Is that not perfect for supper time? Prepared fresh daily, great for meal prep or easy dinners, on special every Monday. In other words, today there is a special on a roasted whole chicken. Also, you know what? Snacks, chicken sandwiches, boneless wings. If you're gonna fill up the car, you're gonna get the quality gasoline guarantee. What more could you want to make your life simple than our friends at Quick Trip who are here to help?
Yeah. Okay. Who wants the first hot Vikings take here? Who wants it?
I will go last because I've got an interesting one, but I don't think it should lead off.
Okay. I'll start you off with this one. All right. So I appreciate all the work the Vikings did in a lost season. You know, they showed some fight there after Kirk went down. I appreciate losing 6 out of 7 to get a better long-term sort of outlook on the franchise. I mean, I know that we had the debates for a couple weeks. You're a bad fan if you're rooting for this, that, the other, but like
that's over.
For the long-term health of the franchise, you know, better players are available. You get access to the best edge rusher, the best quarterbacks, right? So it's good to have. If you're not going to make a run in the playoffs, you'd rather not be in no man's land. They came a little bit further away from no man's land with their losses in December. But here is my hottest Vikings take. I don't think they tanked aggressively enough. My hottest take is losing 6 out of 7 wasn't enough. Because if you start to look now, and some things didn't go their way yesterday, right? Like the Falcons, the Falcons hung tough with the Saints. They were tied at halftime, and then they get smoked in the second half. Arthur Smith acts like a juvenile delinquent at the end of that game. You scored a touchdown on my team, and then he gets fired like 10 minutes later.
Which you, by the way,
get the hell out of here, you clown. Yeah.
Amen.
So here's the problem, all right? we knew this was a lost season from the minute Justin Jefferson went down into Kirk Cousins going down, right? We sat there. We even talked about, boy, should they be trading Danielle Hunter at the deadline? So they rise up like the Undertaker sitting up from his grave, right? And choke slam a couple opponents. Atlanta, the Saints. Oh my God, they might be able to make a run here with a bunch of random Josh Dobbs backup quarterbacks. And then after the Saints game, they decided, okay, now we're going to go in the tank. All right. And so they're sitting 11th. The Bears are drafting number 1. They're going to draft a quarterback, especially after yesterday. Justin Fields was so bad in that game against the Packers. If you needed like one lasting memory of, we kind of like Justin Fields, I'm not sure, he put that speculation to bed with his performance yesterday. It was not good. Commanders at number 2. They need a quarterback. Patriots at number 3. They need a quarterback. So there's, and a lot of the mocks this morning too have quarterback coming off the board. So for once, the Vikings are sort of out of no man's land, but not like close enough to the top of the draft order here that I guess my worry is by not losing enough games after Kirk Cousins went down, they put themselves in position to maybe draft like the 4th quarterback off the board. Because if the top 3 teams need quarterbacks, they're probably not trading out of those spots unless you blow them away with an offer that goes above and beyond. So that's kind of, and plus the schedule, by the way, too. Instead of getting the 4th place schedule, they get the 3rd place schedule. And some of this is going to change. You know, like the Commanders might hire a good coach and maybe they get a spark. Maybe the Patriots get a spark. Like those are the teams you were going to play. So you're playing a better schedule than you would have. And I will note that last year, the Texans and Browns both landed 4th place schedules by finishing last place in their divisions. Mm-hmm. And they jump into the playoffs in part because of that bad schedule in 2023. So I guess I'm sitting here today and I'm appreciative of the 6 losses in 7 games in a lost season for the long-term health of the franchise, but I don't know if it was enough losses.
So you're saying essentially that they should have taken, when Kirk got hurt, which I think was, if I'm not mistaken, that was the 3rd game of what eventually became a 5-game win streak. Falcons and Saints were the next 2. What you're saying is that Kwesi should have more aggressively, like he should have traded Danielle at that point, because you would have had to strip the team. You could have traded Danielle Hunter
because the Kirk Cousins injury happened. This is all like hindsight 2020, but even in the moment, we're like, okay. How far you have to make a decision. Hunter's a free agent here in a few months, and we can do a whole separate episode on was it worth it? Because he did say in the locker room he'd like to be here. It's the only thing he knows. Right. But obviously, if another team offers him more money, then he probably goes and signs elsewhere, right? So
always wanted to be a Jacksonville Jaguar, Phil. You know that.
Hey, if they offer $5 million more per year,
I always love Jacksonville, Declan. You know I love Jacksonville. Yeah. So my feeling about that is, when they got off to a 1-4 start, I thought that's when they might be like, okay, we're not the worst team in the world, but this is disappointing, and it sure doesn't feel like it's going to be our year. And then they had very much the same resurgence that, if you guys recall, the 2020 Vikings with Zimmer had when they traded Ngakoue at the deadline, and then they went on like a 4-game win streak. I remember they went to Green Bay coming out of the bye and they won, and then they started that up. Mm-hmm. So, I think if you had made a conscious decision at 1-4 to say, it doesn't look like it's going to be our year, to what you're saying, Phil, Danielle Hunter's going to be a free agent. But like we talked about at the time, this team never will do that. The Bears were 2 years ago, the Bears were unloading guys in training camp because they're like, we're going to be a little bit too good. This team doesn't, because of how it's run, and I still think it goes back to the very, very top, the Wilfs, they will never sort of like say, this is short-term pain. We'll continue the short-term pain, but the trade-off is going to be a long-term bonus, big bonus.
But, and I should say on the other side of this, because I know a lot of fans would agree with this too. You can't just lose games and then expect to also have a winning culture. So I say this a little bit tongue in cheek in that, because I saw a comment, well, why don't they maybe they should have just gone 0-17. And like, well, that would be great. And then you'd be drafting Caleb Williams or Drake May, but you would have no culture. You'd probably be firing your coach. And
right.
So there is a balance between, hey, when adversity hits your team, are you building a culture that can next man up, fight through it, still win games that maybe you're not supposed to. I mean, look at what Mike Tomlin has built with the Steelers. They're limping into the playoffs with TJ Watt is going to be out for like the next 2 or 3 weeks. They're probably not even going to make it far enough for him to come back and play. They've got really no reliable quarterback options. They've got George Pickens who refuses to block and like all these things going against them. And yet the core of it built by Mike Tomlin still leads them to 9-10 wins every single year. And there's a ton of value in that. So I'm kind of torn between, you want the Vikings to be competitive, fight through adversity, have a culture that rises up, they win close games, all these things, right? But you also, for the long-term health of the franchise, you'd like to find someone to take over for the 36-year-old non-elite quarterback that is coming off an Achilles tendon injury. And I'm telling you, I think the first 3 teams in the draft are going to draft quarterbacks. And so now it probably makes sense for you to draft an edge rusher and leave the quarterback question open until sometime later in the first round or second round, right? So
yeah,
it's just, I don't know. It's an interesting spot that they're in right now as you look at the draft order.
Definitely.
You guys want my hot take?
Yeah. Yes, we would love your hot take.
Go ahead.
All right, here's my hot take. The Vikings are no longer in a competitive rebuild. They have to admit this is a full-on rebuild.
Wow.
The Vikings are in a full-on rebuild mode. This is not a
Did you read
competitive
my
rebuild.
piece at VikingsWire.com?
I did not, actually.
Because I basically wrote they've got to drop that stupid term.
Oh, well, it is.
So
I agree
we're
with
thinking
you.
on the same page here.
I like that then, because if you want to get this back in a positive direction, you got to admit that you got to answer some tough questions and basically fill these roster holes that are going to be very difficult to do. This is a full-on rebuild, and things might not be guaranteed for next season, but the Vikings have to admit that. They have to find a quarterback. They have to find interior line help. They got to find a wide receiver 3. They got to find a running back. They have to find a number 1 tight end while their first one is out for the first month. On defense, you have major question marks at cornerback. You have basically no defensive lineman or edges really signed through 2024, and Flores' future is up in the air. And now hitting on a stud quarterback like C.J. Stroud and the Texans did, that makes things easier, can make up for deficiencies. We saw that with Andrew Luck even when he got drafted number 1 overall. And that transition can happen. But there's also guys like Josh Allen who took some significant lumps his rookie season. And then by year 2, they're in the playoffs for the 5th year in a row. They're winning their 4th straight division title. It can happen, but there was an adjustment period there too. So the Vikings have to admit, this is not a competitive rebuild by any means. There's too many holes on this roster. This is a full-on rebuild, and you got to accept it.
And part of the reason why, if you're right, because you just listed some of this, it is pretty daunting when you look and see, okay, they have $37 million in cap space, which is about, 15%? Well, what's the cap's projected to be about $240 million. So we're talking like 15% of the cap is available. And there's things you could do because you actually have a lot of availability in cap space beyond 2024. You're going to fill some of that with maybe Jefferson and Darisaw, whatever. But they don't have, it's not like they have $100 million to just go get a bunch of free agents. They have enough money to bring back a Danielle Hunter, a couple other guys for sure. But they effectively don't have a defensive front right now. They have Harrison Phillips is under contract, and he's a good player. He's not an elite sort of game-changing player. He's a good player. You want him on your team. But other than that, Wanham, free agent and injured. Hunter, free agent. Davenport didn't even really play and a free agent. Jonathan Bullard, who wasn't great, but did play 600 snaps on the interior of your defensive line, is a free agent. Kyrus Tonga is a restricted free agent. He played like 150 snaps. So, okay, that's just one position group. You literally it's like maybe the most important position group once you get past quarterback, right? It's pretty much quarterback, offensive line, defensive line. You got to have those things solidified. Offensive line, a lot of questions about Dalton. Your left guard is wide open. Dalton Reisner's a free agent, and he wasn't that great. He's a good pass protector. Garrett Bradbury is still kind of mid. So can you trick yourself as an organization into thinking, it's okay. Just get Cousins back, get that Achilles healed up, get Danielle back, and then draft somebody in the first round and go and contend, and not just contend to win 9 games in a division, by the way, that's now owned by the Lions. The Packers have sort of fast-tracked to the next franchise quarterback, apparently. So, yeah, how how objectively will you look at this organization if you're the Wilfs? And or are we? Am I missing something? That no, Phil. There is plenty to be done here. We're going to elevate Lewis Seen as a weapon in waiting that we haven't unleashed yet. Like,
right.
These young cornerbacks are going to take a big step forward. It just feels like it's obvious how many holes they have and what they need to potentially do here, but
but they rarely go down that path, if ever. And what they do is they do exactly what you just said, which is they say, hold on a second here. If we get Kirk back, if we could try to get Hunter back, which I think bringing both back would be very, very tough, but they'll say, yeah, let's go draft an edge. We're going to be in great shape. In some ways, I think internally, especially if he sticks around, what Brian Flores did is a double-edged sword. Because, yeah, it was fantastic. It's very impressive. But they'll say, well, you know what? He did it once. He can do it again. What are you saying our personnel is not that good? Look at what B-Flow did. And so these are all of the problems that emerge from, and I'm with Dex. And what I wrote is, let's quit with competitive rebuild, and let's quit with that word rebuild at all. Just call it a retool. Rebuild seems to be such a, oh my God, if you're rebuilding, you're bad for 5 years. Well, that's not the way that this league works. Like if they start to retool tomorrow, they very well could be a playoff team in a couple of years. Now, perhaps you're punting on 2024, but there's nothing, as the Texans showed, there's nothing that is like, it's the old days. I think across sports has been, if you're rebuilding, it's probably 5 years. That's not how this league in particular does not work that way.
But it could be 5 years if you don't do it right. That is, I want to build in. There is risk, obviously. This is the
obviously.
thing. The safest thing you could do, and maybe not even anymore, because Kirk is 36 coming off Achilles. He'll be 36 this summer. Kirk has been one of the safest bets in the NFL for the last 8 to 9 years, and that he's good enough to prevent you from being a garbage organization. He's an adult. He doesn't get into trouble off the field. He's been healthy up until this season. He's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league. Like, he's super reliable. Kirk Cousins and his presence at quarterback guarantees that you're going to win like 8 or 9 games, right? Maybe in a really bad year, you might only win 7 if he's your starter. I think they had a 7-9 season once with Washington. There might have been a 7-9 with the Vikings, but like he is a safety net for you. But he's also at this point, especially their cap situation, all the positions they have to fill here. If you bring him back, you're probably going to win 8 games next year against a third-place schedule, and that's great. But you're not winning a Super Bowl. You're not bringing him back and filling all of these holes at the dominant level needed to go in and beat San Francisco on the road, NFC Championship game, etc., right? So at some point, you have to go away from the safe thing, the safety blanket thing, and move into the next chapter. And there's risk in moving into the next chapter, because if you trade up and you whiff on Jaden Daniels or something, right? Okay, you might be bad for a year or two.
But if you're afraid of that, if you own the team and you are afraid of that, then you should get new executives. Like, you should fire everybody. Like if I'm like, I own a sports team, I hired a bunch of people, but I'm not sure I trust them, then I should fire them. Like, that's the thing, is I either empower them to do what they were brought here to do, or find ones that you trust. It can't always be, but if we play it safe, because I think people get confused. I don't think this has anything to do with like, the Vikings, oh my God, if they aren't good for a couple of years, US Bank Stadium is going to be empty. I don't think this is a money play. I think that this is the Wilfs being fans, but you've got to trust your people. So when they come to you with a plan that's like, we're going to sort of strip things down. Kirk's not coming back, and we're going to strip things down, and we might lose. We're going to try to keep Daniel, but we might lose him too. And if you say, no, we can't lose those guys, then guess what? Then you should get new people to tell you what to do until you trust them.
Yeah. Well, here's just like a hot take within a hot take, and then we'll get to Judd's hot take to round this out, just as we're talking here. The Vikings were closer to winning a Super Bowl in the first 4 years of Mike Zimmer than they've been at any point in the 6 years of Kirk Cousins. And it's not because, if you just measured the quarterback position, which is what I think a lot of people do watching NFL games, so you want to get worse at quarterback? No, I want to get better as an organization and a team. And the Vikings team from 2015 through 2017 in particular, after Zimmer's first year, when They popped up, won 11 games in the second year, and then they had the best defense in the NFL, 13 wins, a better offensive line. They had Diggs and Thielen in their prime, all these guys, Rudolph in his prime. They were closer to winning a Super Bowl in the first 3 years before Kirk Cousins got here than in the 6 years since. They've been, frankly, nowhere near winning a Super Bowl in the last 6 years. Not even when they were a 13-win team. And you get beat at home against that Giants team, you were nowhere close to winning a Super Bowl. So if you look at it from that perspective and get away from, oh, you're trying to downgrade at quarterback. It's not just about a 1-for-1 here. It's about the entire team. It's about how you shift money around. It's about the ages of players. It's so much more complicated than just downgrading from Kirk Cousins.
Because it's the sexiest thing to talk about, I think the quarterback position obviously gets the spotlight. But internally, when they now sit down to meet within the next month or so with the Wilfs, that conversation's got to and will go well beyond Kirk. Like, it's a whole philosophy. But back to Declan's point, that's where he's right. That's where they need to look. It was very cute, okay? They kept the band together and they won 13 games. And that's awesome. It basically proved the premise that Zimmer had lost his fastball and O'Connell, for 2022 at least, was a better head coach, okay? You were proven right.
Yeah.
But now it's time to move on to chapter 2. Because if you don't, guess what? You're going to have more people lose their jobs. And that's not a Kirk thing. That's an everything about this team thing.
And here's the thing too, because it's team. There's a lot of people that when you start to poke at Kirk, the defense back is, well, football's a team game. It's about team. But when you flip the conversation around, no, it's no longer about team anymore. It's about one position and whether you are as good or not as good as Kirk Cousins. I could sit here right now. We could just do this exercise. Teams that have a far better record this year than the Minnesota Vikings, but a worse quarterback than Kirk Cousins, right? Now, Baltimore has the best record, and I think everyone would agree. Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens are both better than the Minnesota Vikings. 49ers at 12-4. Can you definitively say that Brock Purdy is better than Kirk Cousins? Or is that car just a better car to be driving? If you put Kirk Cousins in that car, they're still winning 12 games, maybe even more. And I like Purdy, but I think most people say Dallas is 12-5. I think a lot of people would. I think I would take Dak right now, but a lot of people would fight and say, no, I mean, put Kirk in that car. With that defense swarming around, Micah Parsons, with that offensive line, Hall of Fame left tackle, right? Buffalo, Josh Allen. Okay. I mean, Josh Allen is a future Hall of Famer. Detroit, 12-5 with Jared Goff. I would put Jared Goff above Kirk Cousins, former number 1 pick, but that's a debate for sure. Cleveland, 11-6. Kirk's better than all their quarterbacks. Kansas City, okay. Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts got benched yesterday.
Philadelphia is a hot mess.
I know. Miami with Tua. Kirk is better than Tua. Tua drives a better car.
This is going to sound really weird. I'm getting the feeling that despite the short-term sugar high, Sirianni is not the guy.
They can't fire him. What if they get smoked by? They're playing the Buccaneers, right? In the first round. What if they get smoked by Tampa?
There's always something about him that's been sort of odd, and now that they're melting down, he doesn't seem to have the ability to stop it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it'd be interesting to see. But my grand point here is this is about how do you build a better car,
right?
And if Kirk no longer fits into that equation because he's taking up too much cap space or whatever it is, focus on the car, not just the 1-for-1. Is this quarterback coming in better immediately than Kirk Cousins? That's my appeal here, I guess. All right, Judd.
Okay, for this hot take, get your pens, pencils ready because I'm about to spew you a hot take that is going to involve a little bit of deduction for the National Football League draft, okay?
Okay.
The Vikings taking a look at the Bears-Panthers trade a year ago that got Bryce Young to the Panthers. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the Bears will trade with you almost no matter what. I think the Bears will probably, you're right, take a quarterback, but they might trade that pick, but it ain't going to be within their division. Washington is in your conference. I think that because of the fact that they have instability, I agree with you on the Patriots, but the Patriots are going to part ways with Belichick, and the Patriots need a lot of help as well. Okay. So The Vikings need to offer the Patriots their 2024 first round pick, so that's a swap, a 2025 first round pick, a 2024 second round pick, and a third rounder in 2026 for the number 3 overall pick in this year's draft.
Wow, dude. Wow.
Oh, boy.
And
Hold on, did you do the draft chart math on that?
I
Or did you just
what I-
make that up?
No, I made that up based off the Panthers-Bears trade, and here's what I'm taking out because that was the number 1 pick, and this is 3. I'm taking out the DJ Moore component, so I'm not giving them a Pro Bowl player.
You're not giving him Justin Jefferson?
Correct. Well, I mean, DJ Moore is a really good player, and according to the Bears, was an absolutely essential part of that trade. But I'm talking about the 3rd pick, not the 1st pick. So I think you for sure withhold some part of the package, and to me, it's a star player.
So there is, I do have the draft value chart here.
Let's do it.
From drafttech.com.
Football.
Let's do it.
All right. So the Vikings need, this is going to get really wonky here, but for the Vikings to move from 11 to 3, they need to give 1,000 points in value.
Okay.
Their second round pick is worth 480. So let's round up. It's worth 500 in value.
Oh, I might have overshot here.
A future first round pick. Hey, how does that work? Because it's not a future first round pick. Thor used to have this math. It's not worth the exact amount of a current first round pick because you're deferring it to the future year.
Right. And you don't
but isn't like, it's like 75% of the value or something?
That sounds right. I think that sounds right.
Okay.
Maybe we can text one of our guys.
I'll talk to Miles and Forno about it maybe tomorrow too.
Okay.
Yeah, just text Thor. We still talk to Thor. I love the Thormeister.
It would be great. We'd love to get Thor back in the mix too. And so if you could go bother Thor on social and say, hey, Thor, we'd love you to come back to Score North, come back to Purple Daily. Come
Daily
back
misses
home.
you, Thor.
Yep. So a future first round pick, and plus you don't really know where that future first round pick is going to be. So let's just say a future first round pick is, this might be their logic too. Let's just say it's like in the middle of the pack somewhere. So it's like 1,000 points. But you knock off 25% for waiting a year. So let's call it 750 points. Does my logic make sense there?
Okay.
That gets you home right there.
Oh, well then you know what?
That gets you home right there. It would be a future first, and it would be your current second round pick that would potentially get you home.
And you're flip-flopping your first round picks then this year. Okay, well then I am removing at least one part of that trade. My point is that I want one of the 3 quarterbacks.
And you'd probably be getting Jaden Daniels in that situation, right?
Which I think would be a pretty good addition.
You seem to be circling Jaden Daniels too. I mean, before Combine and stuff starts to go out, I feel like Judd Zolgad's number 1 guy if the draft were tomorrow. I think Jaden Daniels seems to be your target.
I like the overall package. And I like what he brings. And I'm not convinced because O'Connell ultimately didn't continue to get a ton from Joshua Dobbs. I'm not convinced. I feel like it's now the narratives become, well, he doesn't want a mobile quarterback. I think he wants the right one. Like I think it's a stretch to say because a career backup didn't pass the test. I think it's a stretch to say, well, he clearly just wants a guy to sit back in the pocket like Kirk did. It's my opinion that in some ways what we saw was O'Connell trying to stick with the system that he had designed. He didn't want to overhaul it. But the other thing is and this sort of makes sense. I don't love it, but it was essentially halfway through the season. So like if you get your quarterback, okay, if you draft your guy in April and it's Jaden Daniels and he's got a multitude of skills and a bunch that Kirk didn't have, you know, are you telling me that he's going to take the Kirk playbook and be like, well, this is all I run?
Well, this is a good segue into the Brett Kollman report from over the weekend, because this sort of philosophical discussion might actually have been answered a year ago leading up to the draft. So let's get to that. I also have at least one mock for you guys. We have more Black Friday news coming in. So let's call this halftime of our Purple Daily live stream here.
Timeout.
We'll call timeout here, or we'll just go into the locker room here.
It's a
at
30-second
this halftime.
timeout, or are we taking a full timeout?
It might be like a 2-minute timeout after we shout out our friends over at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. Federated, if you're looking to draft an insurance partner that has your back, that offers you frontline protection like a great offensive line, Federated Mutual Insurance Company has been around since 1904. They're based in Owatonna, Minnesota. They are one of us, so to speak, and they are just a great partner for you, a business owner, to make sure that you have that peace of mind that they bring. All sorts of expertise and tools. You can find more information at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. Also, our friends over at Zero Res are helping you deep clean your home and take a deep breath of fresh, clean air, clean carpets, clean air ducts. And get this, you can get 3 rooms Zero Resified starting at just $119. Think about that, $119, get 3 rooms Zero Resified, carpets cleaned. When you ask for the Score North special, call 952-0-RES or zeroresminnesota.com. Make sure you say you want the Score North special to get those 3 rooms Zero Resified and $75 off when you get your air ducts cleaned as well. Spell it forward or backwards, it spells the same. Zero Res. Okay? So here is, for those unfamiliar, Brett Kollman has a massive YouTube channel and community. It's called The Film Room on YouTube. It's excellent. He does film breakdowns, offensive line breakdowns. He's also, within the last year, been hired as a consultant for the Chargers. So he's super plugged into the NFL community, the scouting community. Like I said, he has worked for at least one NFL team. And he joined the Mina Kimes podcast a few days ago. And he said, quote, "I don't think people realize how hard the Vikings tried to trade up for Anthony Richardson last year. The haul they put on the table was massive. They were going to give away the entire farm, the cat, like all of the farm," he said. "They were going to give everything, but it takes 2 to tango. Their trade partner thought they were going to be too good, and so they went elsewhere because they didn't want low picks. So the team thought, oh, the Vikings are going to make this deal, and then our future first-round picks are going to be in the late 20s or whatever.
Right.
I still feel like Minnesota is going to make a move in the 2024 NFL draft."
Reckless speculation.
What do you make of that?
So I think that's probably spot on. And I believe it was our friend Forno that around this time,
Yes,
or around draft time last year, said that he had heard the same type of exact things. Now, the one thing I didn't know,
we should give him credit real quick, because I know that, like, I don't think he went super public with that.
He didn't.
But he was texting us like in the hours leading up to the draft saying, hey, I'm hearing that the Vikings really like Anthony Richardson and they are making potentially a huge move to go up. He heard the same thing that clearly Brett Kollman heard. So credit to Forno on that.
now I think the interesting bit of new news from this is the fact that the team that they were going to trade with was actually afraid that the Vikings would be too good and get low picks. That makes a lot more sense now. Now, what's interesting, for instance, is in my proposed trade with a Patriots team that needs a lot of help as well. I don't think that if you are the Patriots and the Vikings are going to move on from Kirk and sort of hit a retool button, I don't think that you have to be as concerned about, oh my God, they're going to be drafting 30th. They're going to go to the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
So I do think, and this is the thing I'm waiting for, I do think that we need to see, and hopefully will see, a move from Kwesi, and to a certain degree O'Connell approved, but a move like this, right? Like, this is the next step. Like, at some point in time, unless you are perfectly happy to spin your wheels continually, Rick Spielman, I will say this, Rick Spielman was allowed to, and it made sense at the time, go out and sign Kirk Cousins, because it's like the Wilfs have never been afraid of splashes. I feel like they do get afraid of, oh my God, what happens if we're bad? But what I make of this is it's very logical to think that something along these lines is coming now. And with the current quarterback class, why not this year? Like, the timing is absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Why not this year to do something like this? And to go back to Dex's point, a guy like Jaden Daniels seems to me to be a damn good fit here.
So this is so fascinating in that if Anthony Richardson was the guy they identified, it meant they were comfortable with some inaccuracy, because coming out of college, and Anthony Richardson didn't play enough this year to really see what he looked like in an NFL offense. He played like 3 games or whatever and got hurt. So he came out of college with one of the lowest completion percentages of any quarterback ever drafted in the first round in the modern era, like the last 30 years. He had only started 13 games in college. He started 1 game in 2021 and then 12 in 2022. So if Richardson was the guy, it means they were comfortable trading, because where were they picking? Like, they were picking like
third, right? The Vikings.
So to move up maybe 20 spots to get a guy that had accuracy issues, a guy that was completely inexperienced, only started 13 games in college. Now, Jaden Daniels, in terms of mobility, kind of fits the profile. But here's the thing about Jaden. Now, there's a 35, 40-pound difference between. They're both pretty tall, like 6'3", 6'4". Anthony Richardson measured in at like 245 pounds. Jaden Daniels listed around 210, depending on the website you go to. So there's like a 30 or 40-pound difference between those two guys. But Jaden Daniels has made 55 starts in his college career, and he completed 72% of his passes last year at LSU. He also, by the way, led the Division I ranks with 1,100 rushing yards. So it makes some sense. And you're probably not moving up to 1. You're probably not moving up to 2 for the reasons Judd just mentioned. But this would be a shorter trip up the board. I don't want to compare Richardson and Jaden Daniels too much because they do profile differently. But for a guy who's electric with mobility, uses his legs, he's more accurate, not quite as stout. He doesn't have the Dante Culpepper build that Anthony Richardson has. But essentially the opposite profile of quarterback that you've been working with if you're Kevin O'Connell in Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford, and some of the other guys from his previous stops too.
And I'm really excited to talk with Miles and Forno about this. And by the way, programming alert, I know we usually drop that episode on Mondays. We're going to drop it on Tuesday morning just because of the national championship game and stuff. So if you're expecting Purple Alien draft, a little extra day of waiting, but we'll have a big one ready for you on Tuesday morning. And we're going to get into this too, but you look at the draft board, there are players, just black and white, that you can trade up with, teams you can trade up with. Like the Chargers are at 5. They're not going to take a quarterback. The Titans drafted Will Levis last year. Are they going to take a quarterback? I don't think so. They could, but I don't think so. So there are paths. I mean, if you want to go up one extra spot with the Jets might even bail back a little bit here. There are paths going from as high as 5 or maybe even at 7 where that's plausible. You're not jumping 20 spots. And again, you're not going to get it for free, not going to get it completely discounted. But going up from 11 to even 7, that's doable, man. Like that's not giving up a complete king's ransom. You're going to have to pay a hefty price. But there's an actual path where that does make a ton of sense.
So in terms of the teams in front of you that definitely need a quarterback or are likely going to be threats to sniping someone in front of you, right? We've already got Bears, Commanders, Patriots. The Cardinals at 4, it seems more and more like they're just going to roll forward, especially if the board plays out and they can get a Marvin Harrison Jr.
Right.
The Cardinals, now that they've fallen, they're probably not drafting a quarterback at 4.
Yep.
Declan said it. The Chargers, they have Herbert. The Giants at 6 are really interesting.
Yeah. They're a wild card
because they finished kind of hot with backup quarterbacks. Could they take a quarterback 6? So you might have to, if you view the Giants as a threat to take a quarterback at 6, you're right. The Titans have Will Levis. Although they will get to some Black Friday or Black Monday speculation. There's a Vrabel to New England report out there. So if they change coaches, could the new coach want a new quarterback? But they've got Will Levis. The Falcons at 8 need a quarterback. So if you want the third quarterback off the board, you might have to jump the Giants and the Falcons and hope that 3 quarterbacks don't go off the board in the first 3, or do the Judd thing, which is just trade up to 3 and make the Patriots. All right, we were going to draft a quarterback. We can still take Penix later, but we'll take the draft capital to. Right. Or the other thing you could do is, whether you trade up or not, you could let the top of the draft, let 3 quarterbacks come off the board and don't get crazy. But that means there's going to be better other players available. You could take the first or second edge rusher off the board, or you could take the defensive tackle from Illinois, Newton, right? And then work your way back into the first round later and grab a Penix or somebody if you thought there was 5 or 6 quarterbacks that you could do with. That's the thing we don't know is, do they view a Jaden Daniels as being a franchise changer 2 levels above like a Michael Penix or a Bo Nix or some of these other guys?
And my opinion is this. I think they are at a place right now where they need to identify the quarterback they want. And if it's not going to be the first and probably second overall pick, go get that player. Yeah. Like, it's just a different. I know this team has, traditionally not done this. In fact, I don't think they've ever done this. But I think if you can identify that and go to the Patriots and say, we will even, and it sounds like the Richardson trade is a comparable where we will even overpay, but we're going to get the guy that we want. And it's just time.
Yeah.
Phil, to your point about ponderitis and all of the, Christian Ponder, what if we get Christian Ponder again? We're also paralyzed with the long held Herschel Walker-itis as well, right? Which is what if we get ripped off in a trade like the Herschel deal, one of the worst trades in sports history. So we're always paralyzed by these fears. And again, I'll go back and say this. If you don't trust the people who are making the decisions, then get new people or let them do their job. Because this whole thing of, well, in 1989, the Vikings got fleeced by the Cowboys. And I remember that. Or, in 2012 or so, the Vikings took Ponder and that didn't work. That does concern me, though. The one thing about the Ponder thing I think that was learned is this. If you need a position like that and you're just sort of going to wait around and be like, well, who's left? I would rather be aggressive and actually identify a guy and go get that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing I'm trying to figure out here is I'm looking at last year's draft order because there was a bunch of trades. So I tried to find a list where it had the teams organized by where they originally were slotted after the Panthers had moved up because they moved up pretty early to number 1. Mm-hmm. Which team said no to the Vikings if the Brett Kollman and Tyler Forness team is correct? And I think it was the Cardinals. NFC rival, not rival, but like a fellow NFC team, right?
Sure.
They were the team open for business. So the Texans had the number 2 pick, and then the Texans traded back up from like 12 up to 3. So the Cardinals were open for business moving back. And so there must have been, I'd love to see like the deal that they got from the Texans next to whatever the Vikings offered, and the Cardinals saying, you know what, we feel like they must have thought the Texans are going to be bad for a while. But ironically, the Texans are in the playoffs, and they might actually wind up.
But you just hit on the key thing. Didn't you just say the Texans went from 12 to 3?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of trying to go from 23 to 3.
And they drafted Stroud number 2 because they had the number 2 pick in the bag. So they drafted Stroud. Then they took Will Anderson, right, the defensive player.
And now the Vikings at 11 are in a far better place to make that move and make the team that they trade with feel pretty damn good still about the picks that they're flip-flopping.
Here was the trade. I have it here. So the Texans received the number 3 and the number 105 picks from Arizona. So 105 would be like a late 3rd or early 4th. It'd be like the I guess the early 4th round pick. And then Arizona so they swapped the 12 and then the early 2nd round pick from the Texans and a 2024 first and a 2024 third. The Texans traded their own 2024 first round pick to the Cardinals, so they had 2 picks to trade there. So here, this is the equivalent. I mean, this is if for the Judd theory on moving up to 3, is you'd swap the 11 and the 3. You would also give up your 2nd round pick and next year's 1st round pick, and then they would kick you back a 4th.
Okay.
It's pretty much exactly what we mapped out there with the draft.
I'm in.
The draft tech chart or whatever that website was. Okay.
Absolutely.
Football.
It's time. It's time, guys.
It's time.
It's Vader.
It's
time. Okay, I might be like 15 minutes behind on the NFL news cycle here, trying to keep up while we do a live Purple Daily. But here is the latest on Black Monday in the National Football League. So ESPN and others reporting that the Commanders have hired Bob Myers, like the NBA Warriors architect Bob Myers, and Rick Spielman, former Vikings general manager, to assist the ownership group to land a new head football coach and a head of football operations. So those guys aren't like full-time employees, but they are helping essentially put the pieces in place for Washington.
Yep.
Interesting. Here's a couple other dominoes. Diana Rossini from The Athletic reporting that Bill Belichick is currently still the head coach in New England as of right now. But the Atlanta Falcons are a team to watch if Belichick is available. They are interested in Bill Belichick, according to sources. I love this. The ownership, Arthur Blank, calls up Diana and says, hey, what are you hearing on Bill?
Well, it makes a lot
yet?
of sense then to have blown out Arthur Smith on Sunday night.
Yeah.
Like to clear the decks.
What would you, I mean, would you trade anything? I mean, Bill's under contract, so if you're Robert Kraft, you'd want to give this a few days to sort of marinate, right? And see if somebody will.
I don't think Bill, Bill might be his own little type of jerk, but I think, when you have won as much as Bill has, I don't think you get the Black Monday treatment. I think you deserve more than that.
You get to at least Tuesday, right?
I think this more plays out. Well, and my guess too is that this will be, as weird as this might sound for a coach, I think this one falls into the mutual decision, right? Like Bill's it's time. Kraft's like, it's time. They hug.
But Bill doesn't want to say it's time because Bill wants his money, right? If Bill says it's time, Robert's like, oh, you think it's time? Are you resigning? You're resigning all that money we paid?
I could see them coming to an agreement then, and like Bill, to your point, being traded or something. I also would not be surprised one bit if Bill, because I don't think he'll retire. If he goes to a team, might coach for a year or so, but I think he'll probably transition to just a GM at some point. I mean, he's what, 70?
Just a GM? Would you hire him to be your GM?
I personally wouldn't, but I think some teams will.
Oh, God,
I would not. No, I would not.
But then as that domino potentially falls, here is Jordan Schultz from Bleacher Report saying, sources tell Bleacher Report, as the Titans weigh Mike Vrabel's future this week, Vrabel is interested in the idea of returning to the Patriots should New England part ways with Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
I like Mike Vrabel. And I mean, I do think he's a good coach. I don't know if I would go, if I was the Patriots, I don't know that would be my guy. I think I would want to disassociate from the Belichick thing. Like if I'm going to let Bill go, do I want a Bill guy coming in?
I mean, Vrabel's done a good job with kind of a revolving door of mid quarterbacks.
He's also a defensive guy. I mean,
I think in the opposite of what you're thinking. I think it makes complete sense. That's why the Patriots would like Mike Vrabel. All the reasons you're laying out, that's why.
So you want to hold on to the Belichick thing?
That's familiar with them. It's stability. Yes, he's defensive first. He's done really well with mid quarterbacks. I mean, I think that makes the point of why the Patriots would go after Mike Vrabel.
I see it as a fit too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I might keep Bill then. But I don't think that they should. I think it's time for.
Oh, you'd keep Bill over bringing Vrabel in?
If I'm going to disassociate from Bill, I'm not going to bring in a Bill protege at this point.
Think of him as like a fresher version of Bill, though.
Yeah, I don't know if it's disassociating. It's just acknowledging that you're moving on from Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I think I go offense first.
Okay.
This is my opinion.
This debate will rage on.
Sure. Okay. Patriots Daily.
Patriots Daily will be off. Oh, can you imagine Boston? Oh, EEI this morning has to be just great.
Well, Bill did a radio interview. He does like his Monday. He did his Monday morning interview, I guess, and just kind of. So Ron Rivera, Washington out. Arthur Smith, Atlanta out. GM Scott Fitterer in Carolina is out. So David Tepper has fired everyone officially. So there are currently, as of right now, 5 head coach openings. Raiders, although the Raiders should just give Pierce that job. Panthers, Chargers, Falcons, and Commanders are all open for business right now. So we'll see what else happens here on Black Monday.
I think the Panthers might be the new Commanders. When you've got the owner throwing drinks on fans and hiring Frank Reich,
so bad.
Drafting, and then, by the way, supposedly it was Tepper that told him to draft Bryce Young. And now he fires the GM. This sounds very, very similar to Daniel Snyder.
Yeah, guy's a total train wreck.
Unable to control himself. Like, what are you doing throwing ice on a fan?
It's so dumb. Okay, I have an interesting one here for you guys.
I want a mock.
All right. This is from the Bleacher Report scouting department, and this mock is presented by our friends over at Underdog. Dax, any winning tickets from the weekend? Any losing tickets?
Yes. Yeah, we got one. Just a nice little payday for our guy watching this Vikings game. He took the hires on Nick Mullins, Justin Jefferson, JJ. I mean, I think JJ has something like 600 some yards almost, no exaggeration, in his last 3 games against the Lions. So any prop you see next season against Detroit with Justin Jefferson, probably just hammer that. And now it's the NFL playoffs, okay? It's the best time of year, and there's awesome pick'em options. There's awesome fantasy league options. So maybe your regular fantasy football season came to an end. You can still draft a playoff team for this weekend on Super Wild Card Weekend at Underdog Fantasy.
Wild Card Week.
Football.
Promo code
the
SCORE,
Rams.
SKOR will give you a $100 deposit match too. So if you haven't joined, $100 deposit match with promo code SCORE. Go download the Underdog Fantasy app.
Matthew Stafford, man, give me those Rams against Detroit. That's gonna be fun.
Man, that's going to be devastating for Lions fans when they build this thing back up after the Stafford trade, and then Stafford sticks a stake through
And
the
he's
heart.
gonna just torch that secondary, which is gonna be just hilarious to watch.
Yeah, they're going to have to. That offense is going to have to put up a lot of points to beat the Rams there. Okay, this is from the Bleacher Report scouting department. It's a brand new mock draft with the new draft order. So the scouting department includes Brandon Thorne, who's the offensive line expert guy on social, and then like 3 or 4 other people. So they put their heads together, and with the number 1 overall pick, the Chicago Bears select Maya. Hold on. She just fought at the dark. With the number 1 pick, the Chicago Bears select quarterback Drake May from North Carolina.
Interesting. You know what? I think there's going to be partially leaked because of self interests, but also partially based on some of the stuff that came out during the season. I think there's going to be some Caleb Williams pushback about things like personality.
For sure. He's crying. He's selfish.
Well, he didn't go to the podium a couple of times, or like once. And I know that sounds stupid.
It's
but like
not, though. It's not.
Right. Exactly. It's important.
If he's kind of like, if he can't handle losing and adversity, and if he lets his emotions overtake, like, those are things that as a quarterback leading a franchise need to get ironed out at some point.
Yeah.
But then also he's young. He's like in his, what is he, 20, 21, whatever he is. Like, you want to give some grace.
Yeah.
But if you're the Drake May camp, you're leaking that stuff all day, right? Oh, did you hear about this dude? Hey, dude cries to his parents after.
Well,
every
and you know what's
interception.
funny is this time of year that we're about to embark on. You don't hear much of, well, he's young. It's always like immediate, oh my God, this guy's a train wreck.
Yeah. Well, because you don't really get the same leeway as a 21 or 22-year-old as you do in normal life where, okay, let's take a gap year and go to Europe and smoke some weed or whatever. It's like, if you're a quarterback, you're walking into a locker room where a bunch of 27 to 30-year-old grown men with families are relying on you to keep the gravy train going, right? So This is the first, I think, prominent mock I've seen where it's just straight up. It's not someone like trading up. It's just the Bears deciding that Drake May is the guy. Number 2, Commanders do take Caleb Williams. Number 3, the New England Patriots take our local guy, Joe Alt, the offensive tackle from Notre Dame.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
So here's part of the write-up there, because this is the third pick here is going to be such a fork in the road that if the Patriots go away from quarterback, there's a bunch of teams that might not need a quarterback after them, right? So their logic here is that the football world is going to be waiting to see if Bill Belichick remains the team's head coach, but the Patriots could do far worse than selecting a franchise left tackle with the 3rd overall pick. It doesn't really say why they wouldn't be taking a quarterback, though. Number 4, Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Cardinals. That seems to make a lot of sense.
I think that's a given.
Number 5, Chargers take tight end Brock Bowers from Georgia. So another weapon for Justin Herbert. Number 6, the New York Giants, another quarterback needy team, right? Although they do have Daniel Jones under contract for $40 million. They got Tommy DeVito waiting in the wings. Tyrod Taylor, one of the better backups.
Yeah.
So they take the offensive tackle from Penn State, Fashanu.
Okay.
So that's 2 tackles off the board. a third tackle off the board to the Titans, protecting Will Levis. It's Alabama's J.C. Latham. Now we're down to the 8th pick. Another quarterback-needy team, the Atlanta Falcons, according to Bleacher Report's scouting department, takes the first edge rusher off the board, Jared Verse from Florida State. This is playing out very nicely for the Vikings here.
So are the Falcons signing Kirk Cousins in this world?
So that's the thing. We will know that before the draft, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's the beauty of all this.
Absolutely.
Number 9, Chicago Bears take, with their second top 10 pick, a wide receiver from LSU, Malik Neighbors. The Jets on the clock at 10 take another offensive tackle, Mims from Georgia, and that puts the Vikings on the clock at 11.
Wow. So they have Jaden Daniels. Wow. Okay.
But this is what happens like this
Yeah.
time of year.
I know.
These guys stocks change,
So I love this time of year.
know?
I love it.
Jaden Daniels from LSU goes to the Minnesota Vikings with the 11th pick.
I want a mock.
Well, I will say this first blush day after season, so much to happen. I got to think if it starts to fall like that, somebody else will try to go up and get Daniels. So
But
if
then
I'm
you
the
can move up too. You could go up a couple
if I'm the
spots,
Vikings, then I think I try and go to 5.
By the way,
Chargers.
Penix goes 12 here, right after Jaden Daniels.
Oh.
They got the Broncos taking Penix.
Okay, and I'm taking Daniels, so I do like that.
Here's the write-up on
Interesting.
Daniels. No prospect. And by the way, on the Justin Jefferson front, let's say Kirk signs with the Falcons or something in March, and Jefferson's like, I'm going to quit football. I'm never playing football again unless Kirk Cousins is my quarterback. That's my quarterback. Kirk Cousins. I'll trade me to Atlanta right now. I want to go to Atlanta. So just wait a couple months. Calm down. Here is a fellow LSU alumnus. Jaden Daniels ran for 1,000 yards, keeps plays alive, big plays down the field. Are you back, Justin? I think Justin would say that sounds great. That can be my tag team partner for the next at least 5 years.
Okay, and that's the thing too is, so I think Justin felt that he had been not tricked, but a couple of weeks ago asked about Kirk. He's like, yeah, I love Kirk Cousins, and he probably does. Like, I don't doubt it.
It's my quarterback.
Did you notice when they came back and asked him last week the same sort of questions, he backed off. He's like, it's up to the team. Like, he clearly had talked to, I don't know, the team or what, but like his response had changed a bit. Justin Jefferson wants one thing, a good quarterback.
And he wants to win. I think he wants to win more than anything.
Yeah.
I don't think it's, I think Diggs is kind of the same way, and that those guys, like they want the ball, and part of the reason they want the ball is because they think, well, we would be winning if you would just give me the ball because I'm really good at football. But you have seen a little bit more cantankerousness on the sidelines from Justin Jefferson. He's not to Diggs levels yet or Randy Moss levels where he's.
Well, yesterday he was frustrated, and I don't blame him. But I mean, I think yesterday was also an encapsulation of the season. Don't you? Like, I don't think, yes, the Lions game wasn't going well, but I think he's been hurt. It's been frustrating. And as far as meltdowns from wide receivers that we've seen, that was about as mild as I've ever seen.
For sure.
Like Chris Carter used to be Moss, and they'd go nuts.
Yeah. You'd have like Dante Culpepper would just be like, or Randall Cunningham would be standing on the sidelines just trying to like enjoy 2 minutes off while the defense does work.
Yes.
And you'd have like 2 receivers, one in each ear, grab over the ball. Here's the write-up on Jaden Daniels to the Vikings, by the way.
Yep.
No prospect improved his draft status this year more than LSU's Jaden Daniels. The 23-year-old benefited from better protection, 2 first-round wide receivers on his flanks, and an investment in virtual quarterback simulation, so he could get extra reps throughout the week.
Put those things on, yeah.
All of it led to the 5th-year senior exploding for almost 5,000 total yards and 50 total touchdowns. From the Bleacher Report scout, quote, Daniels is a unique prospect. He's often defined by his outstanding athleticism and penchant for chunking the ball deep, but Daniels presents far more than these 2 traits. The consensus All-American is a tough pocket manager with a veteran-like sense for running the offense. He could still stand back. He could still stand to be a tick faster at times at getting the ball out, although he understands how to play within the system and find answers beyond his first read. Daniels is an exciting option for Kevin O'Connell's scheme, with Justin Jefferson finally getting to play with a dynamic quarterback.
There you go.
Or we could just bring Kirk Cousins back for 2 years, $80 million.
Or you could just take one in the second round and hope.
Could
just
do that
hope.
too. Yep.
Just, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
So plenty of options on the table there. Okay, we're going to hit you guys with a bonus episode, too, a little bit later on, where Judd carves up his pie chart of blame for a 7-10 missed playoffs season. We'll see what Chef Judd cooks up here. And we are going to be your home starting really yesterday, because Vikings Vent Line turned into a sort of what do you want to do in the future episode. Mm-hmm. We have so much off-season content stacked for you yesterday, today, and then tomorrow we're going to go through as a front office and start to sort of make some salary cap space and go through that exercise. So Purple Daily Vikings entertainment, we're just ramping up now that the season's over between now and draft time. See you guys.